widely known that the Articles of Confederation failed. The Articles did not create a environment of national government to properly govern the United States due to their lack of important powers. The national government could not directly tax the people and instead could only request currency from the states to pay off debts. One can see how really flawed this was when only 1.5 million out of the required 10 million was raised to repay Britain. The national government was also prevented from creating laws that either regulated trade or the behavior of citizens, and the states themselves didn't need to honor agreements from abroad. In addition, the national government had an extremely weak national militia, a fault that led to Shays' Rebellion. This was not put down effectively or efficiently by the states on request of the national government. Also, to amend the Articles, all 13 states were required, which failed on all 4 major attempts. However, through all these failures, the Confederation Congress passed one important piece of legislation, the Northwest Ordinance, which would be the basis of the Northwestern Territory in America and provide future guidance for the nation's expansion.
The Northwest Ordinance was an extremely important document when it was passed, and reflected the many ideals of the Declaration of Independence: social contract, limited government, and unalienable rights. For example, this document included the first Bill of Rights, something even America's Constitution did not originally have. Many provisions in the ordinance are very similar to the first 10 amendments. In Section 14, Article 1, it is written that, quote, "No person, demeaning himself in a peaceable and orderly manner, shall ever be molested on account of his worship or religious sentiments in the said territory," end quote. This can also be seen in the Establishment Clause and Free Exercise Clauses in the First Amendment. In Section 14, Article 2 of the Northwest Ordinance, one can see that the people will be protected by the writ of habeas corpus and trial by jury, which are also specific rights found in Amendment 6. Other similarities include no cruel and unusual punishment, eminent domain, and important due process guarantees. Finally, in Section 14, Article 6, there is almost identical wording in that, quote, "There shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in the said territory," end quote. This is seen again in Amendment 13 of the Constitution that was passed after the Civil War to bring an end to slavery. Therefore, the Northwest Ordinance attained an important goal that was not achieved at the Philadelphia Convention. It is not written into the Constitution until 1865.
In addition to being the framework of the Bill of Rights, the Northwest Ordinance also declared how to admit other territories into the Union as states. Jefferson drafted 3 procedures to follow in doing so. To begin, the Northwest Territory would be split up into, quote, "not less than 3, no more than 5 states," end quote. Secondly, a 3-stage plan was devised in which a governor, a secretary, and 3 judges would be congressionally appointed in the first stage and elected into an assembly and a single non-voting delegate in Congress in the second. And when the population reaches 60,000, a state constitution would be drafted and a request to the Union would be sent. Finally would be the documentation of the Bill of Rights in the territory. This template helped achieve the idea of manifest destiny and expand the U.S., such as with the most recently admitted state, Hawaii. After the Hawaii Admission Act passed by Congress in 1959, Hawaii was accepted into the Union from a referendum vote of 93%. Given that, quote, "the Constitution of the State of Hawaii shall always be in Republican form," end quote. This expectation fulfilled the requirement enumerated in Article 4 of the Constitution.
The Articles of Confederation, although eliminated in 1787, did contribute significantly to America. The document created guidance to the delegates in Philadelphia and provided a portion of the framework to the U.S. Constitution. In the Bill of Rights and the different processes that the United States uses, such as the admission of territories, one might see the influence of the ordinance. Major principles of the document also contribute to the Constitution. For example, education is now considered an important government responsibility that helps instill civic understanding and civic responsibility. In addition, the idea of a social contract, derived from Locke, is an ideal found in the Declaration of Independence as well as contributes to the framework of our government. Therefore, one might see that the greatest achievement of the Confederation Congress was the Northwest Ordinance, but what may surprise people is its continuing influence.
How do we do on time?
It's 3:49.
And what's
4 minutes.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
So that's really good, right? Nice job on time. Excellent. You want to start?
With the question?
Yeah. Is that what we do next? The follow-up questions? Okay. Is there a time for that? 6 minutes. Okay. Follow-up questions and then overall feedback?
Yeah.
So you spoke a lot of the Northwest Ordinance. So why did the American government have to be invented, based off the Northwest Ordinance and Shays' Rebellion?
The Northwest Ordinance had created many ideals that would help the American government become what it is today, such as including rights so that the citizens themselves would have rights under a government.
And a major part of the Northwest Ordinance was that it was one of the few pieces of legislation, along with the Treaty of Paris, that the Articles of Confederation had successfully passed that was efficient. And so that obviously shows that under the Articles of Confederation, the national government was extremely weak, such as their national militia with only 675 poorly trained men, which was not efficient enough to put down rebellions. So they had to ask the states for help, but when the states had agreed with the rebellers, then they wouldn't work. They refused to do it.
So the Northwest Ordinance only set up government for the Northwest territories that were being admitted into the Union. It wasn't setting up government for what had already been governed under the Articles of Confederation, and as my colleague Colby said, with the 675 poorly trained men, and that was clearly not enough to provide for a national militia, as if another country had tried to go to war with us, the 675 poorly trained men would not have been able to withhold another nation's army.
The Northwest Ordinance would, however, set up the lack of slavery in the future, as they did not allow slavery in the Northwest Territories, which set up the future Constitution for the amendments of the Constitution, 13th, 14th, and 15th, for a lack of slaves.
I thought you did a nice job, and I know this is kind of feedback, not what's going to lead to a question, about some of the influence that the Northwest Ordinance might have had on the Constitutional Convention in 1787. But my follow-up question has to do with when the Northwest Ordinance was passed by the Confederation Congress. How was it received? Was it received as a radical policy, or a conservative policy, or was it universally embraced? How about a little bit of information about the passage in 1787?
Well, it was embraced relatively well, because when the Articles of Confederation were originally going to be ratified, states like Maryland didn't want to ratify it, as they were the last state to do so, because the Northwestern Territory was open to the states that were bordering it, which would allow almost infinite expansion to the other side of the continent with manifest destiny. However, since that was laid out with the Northwest Ordinance, it was going to be accepted rather easily, because it laid out not only that, how the Northwest area would be governed, but it also led into the Constitution.
To add on to what my colleague Colby just said, the Northwest Ordinance stated that the Northwestern Territory would be divided into between 3 to 5 states, which allowed for not all states to have expansion in the Western Territory, which is what some of the states that are on the East Coast feared, because they would not have any Western expansion at all. So what this did is it just took the territory that some states had a claim on, and it just broke it up into 3 to 5 new states.
As Colby was saying earlier with Maryland, it took them almost 5 years to ratify the Articles of Confederation, so they didn't take effect until all the states had ratified it, as it took 13 out of 13 states to ratify it. And with them adding 3 to 5 states, it wouldn't allow any of the other states to expand, as the land would go to new states. So it helped, the Northwest Ordinance helped all of the other states agree to it, as it set up a government for that new land and not let the other states expand.
The Northwest Ordinance I would say it was more democratic, as it did support the idea of lack of slavery, which the North supported. I would say it favored the North, as it was also closer to the Northern Territory, and with the lack of slaves, it just really led up to the Constitution.
And to go back to the original question of how it was received, it was received rather well, because it also set up how territories would be admitted into new states, where they would need a Bill of Rights. And we can look at Puerto Rico, where it has been a territory and has been talked about the 51st state since 2012, but since they don't want to become the 51st state exactly, they haven't been forced to it.
Even though the Northwest Ordinance said that slavery would be banned in the Northwestern Territory, the South still accepted it, because they didn't really want slaves in the North, because it wouldn't prove to be efficient for them.
So Riley spoke about how the founders wanted a more democratic system, yet the founders wanted to steer away from a more direct system of democracy. So why do you think the founders did not want that? kind of system of government?
The founders did not want a direct democracy for their government because it proved in the past to not work by giving everybody a vote.
Like John had just said, in Greece, the direct democracy had completely failed because the government can basically be overtaken by a mob or a riot, which would throw off the entire balance of power.
However, they did see as representative democracy and republic had worked in the Roman Republic for over 500 years, so they did want something like that, as they didn't want a monarch, as they just came from in Britain, because it was way too much power. So they wanted a republic, but they didn't want a direct democracy because they had seen it fail before.
They wanted a strong national government, but they still wanted.
Time.
Now we do the feedback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, will we start?
Yeah, you can say.
Okay. I thought you guys did great. I really like the fact that you were able to get your message across in sometimes when I hear groups do this, it's hard to follow because they're talking so quickly. I thought that each one of you were able to contribute your piece in a clear and concise way, and I thought you complemented each other in dividing up that message. I thought you were really on task in defending the thesis of the most significant measure. Everything was tied in there. I think the follow-up question that I felt you did the best on was the important ideals that are included in the Northwest Ordinance, talking about the social contract, for example. You did a nice job of trying to build an argument of the Northwest Ordinance as a foundation for the framers and of the Constitutional Convention to build upon and change. And in starting with some of the weaknesses of the articles that I think everybody that studies American history is pretty aware of, and then moving to, despite these weaknesses, here is kind of a crowning achievement with the Northwest Ordinance, worked really well.
I think the group as a whole did a really good job of answering the overall question, but dividing it into the separate parts in order to thoroughly explain the answer, like amongst all of you. And also, you used a lot of great facts, and Colby even had numbers in his, like a lot of you used numbers, like whether in regards to the size of the militia or dates. You were really thorough in the facts that you used, and you were really well rounded in all the answers you gave us.